Welcome to our viewers, our listeners. I'm Colleen Mizuki, and I wanted to start this series on curiosity because I've always been curious about curiosity, and I wanted to explore it with lots of different people and hear their ideas and how curiosity plays a role in their lives. And so this is just a short conversation, not an interview, but a conversation about that. And I'll introduce my guest in just a moment, my very, very special guest. I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen any of these yet, I was going to call this Out of Curiosity, but then a song started playing in my head by Paul Simon, Still Crazy After All These Years. And I thought, well, actually, I'm going to call it Still Curious because I'm still curious after all these years. I think I came to the world curious, and I'm still super curious. And one of the reasons I wanted to invite you is because of one of the first conversations we had a long time ago. And I know what a curious person you are. So it really is just a podcast or about the experience of curiosity. And what is it? How does it, when we embrace curiosity, what happens? What does it feel like? If viewers don't know, I'm super interested in something called interoception, which is the information from the body to the brain that helps the brain do its job. And so what does it feel like when we're curious? We might explore that. We'll just see where the conversation goes. So it's just casual and just authentic. That's really my goal. And I want to say for folks who have been checking into articles on the Substack that this video will live on both Substack and YouTube. Check our socials, follow us, and please feel free to leave a comment and questions below. Any thought you might have, we appreciate that. So that's all I wanted to say about sort of setting the stage for what this is. And I want to now introduce my very, very good friend, somebody that I absolutely love deeply. Sorry to embarrass you, Kai, but Kai, and I call him Kai, but it's a longer name, and you can share it if you want. I first met Kai in 2010 when I started volunteering for a program called the Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program. And my first conversation with that program in California was with Kai, who was a sergeant at the time. Um, and we've just had, I think, an amazing friendship since then. It's more like a brother, I think, is kind of how I think of you. And Kai is currently serving as AFRICOM's ODACA program manager, and I had to learn from him what that is. And correct me, I wrote it down: Overseas Humanitarian Disaster and Civic Aid Program. And it's run out of Stuttgart, Germany, where Kai has been for now a month or so. He's had an amazing career. He joined the Army at 18, right out of high school. He enlisted as a combat engineer and was sent to Iraq. And when he finished, did you do 4 years and then go back to school, Kai?
3 years.
You did
And then
3 years
yeah.
and then went back and got his psychology degree and then got commissioned as an officer and has been serving our country since then. So that's what I wanted to sort of open up with about you and see what else you'd like to say. And then I'll just ask an opening question.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yes, you trigger a memory and remind me how long we've known each other. And it just puts a smile on my face every time I think about how long we've known each other. But you did mention my name is longer than just Kai, so out of curiosity, if anybody's wondering, it is my full name is Anh Ky Ban if you pronounce it in Vietnamese, but Anh Ky Ban, so I go by Kai, and everybody knows me by Kai as well. So with that, yeah, I am actually more curious where this will take us. I know we have great conversation every time we have a chance to get together and talk over coffee or just hikes or walks. Funny enough, we lived in California and that's where we met, but we didn't really spend a lot of time until we really went out to DC and then we ran to each other again and just how our relationship and how we've been interacting over the years. Hopefully I'll see you here in Europe sometime when you come visit.
Definitely going to make it to Germany to see you or meet you in France or somewhere, England.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It brings me so much happiness also to think about the many conversations, like you said, over coffee, beer, hikes, walks, kayaking, whatever. You were a very instrumental, what I called you at the time, my military cultural coach. you we watched movies together, like Black Hawk Down, and I would ask you
Yeah.
questions. I'd pause and I'd say, "Okay, what about this?" And you were just you've been amazing. The conversation I was thinking about when I thought I'd really have to invite Kai is we went to, I think it was Florida. I don't remember now, but we went, it was probably 2011, and we went with Colonel Rabb to work with some of the soldiers and their spouses who had been the soldiers who had been involved in the shooting at Fort Hood. Do you remember
Mhm.
that?
Yes, very
And I
much.
remember we had a really, maybe it was 2010. We had an amazing initial conversation, and I don't know how long it lasted, probably 2 hours, but it started somewhere, it ended up with quantum physics, and then it
Oh.
went on to something else. And I thought, "I have met my match in curiosity." So, I've started the last of these, conversations, this is my 3rd, by saying that for me, I think everybody might see curiosity differently, they might experience it differently. The way that it makes sense to me personally, and I'll be very curious to know if this lands for you, and you as a guest and you as listeners and viewers, that for me, curiosity is, it's like looking at there are different types of curiosity. One type is more like a navigator, somebody who has a destination they want to get to, and they have a map, and they need to get points along the way. So it might be somebody who is seeking information for a purpose, and then that's not a bad thing. It's just a different way of being curious. And then the curiosity that I'm most interested in is the one that might be more like the explorer, because in the explorer there may be a general destination, but it's less important than the journey, than the exploring itself. And and it's sort of that kind of a conversation I want to have, which is let's just see where this goes, and I'll just start with one opening question, and we'll just follow it, right? And this is about what you have to bring, and I'm really just asking a couple of questions to sort of get the process started. But let me start out with this. This is something that I'm genuinely curious about. I think you are a very genuinely, authentically curious person. Did you know that about yourself? Is that part of your identity, or do you remember always being curious?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's an interesting question. And as you're explaining the two different curiosity or curious path that you're explaining, one with an end goal, one just naturally navigating curiosity. I think I if I could remember all the way back to childhood, I think I was born with it. I
Mm,
was always curious as a child
mm,
and always asking questions, and not maybe not outside not out loud or not at ask questions to my mom or my dad or someone, but just in my head, and then set out to see if I can find answers to them. And I think that's important to the second part of curiosity, or the other curiosity you're talking about, where you have a set goal and you set out and you continue to find answer and become curious in that. I think as I grow older, the curiosity that I had as a child, just exploring different things, not knowing where it'll end up,
mhm,
helps when I do have that goal, when I do have that end state that somehow was set for me, whether it's work, whether it's education, whether it's my family, um, it helps me set onto the path to find answer because I continue to be curious. And so I think
mm,
throughout my life, I balanced those two because as you grow older, I think you come the you'll your experience, your education will kind of help shape that curiosity and focus it a little bit more. I think that's how it's been working for me. Although I will have to say, I kind of enjoy the being a kid and being curious more than being an adult and being goal oriented and then having curiosity as a tool rather than just being curious.
mm,
And I think and maybe that's just me. I'd be curious on what other people think, if you've grown up and just always curious about the world and your environment, and then as you become an adult, that curiosity becomes a tool for you more than you just being freely curious and wanting answer because you just want to answer because you're curious. I think I've realized that I stopped being curious just to be curious and more focus on
Mm,
goal oriented being curious. Like I find a topic that, for instance, I'm as you mentioned in your introduction, I just got here to Stuttgart, Germany. I've taken on a new job as the program manager for DACA. And more, I'm curious on how I can apply my experience, what I've learned uh, on the Hill, in the Pentagon, my upbringing, and then how do I take all that into the work that I'm doing now, and then learning the program itself, and then how that impacts um,
mm,
AFRICOM as a command, the continent that we're working with in Africa, and all that. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of not sure where I'm going with this, but I guess you made me realize that I kind of miss my
mm.
childhood curiosity. Yeah. I don't know that it makes any sense.
I love this, and it's one of the reasons I love having conversations with you because I'm aware of me feeling like as I listened to you just now the last few minutes, it's like I feel like I'm just walking with you as you sorry, I have a bit of allergies, so I have my teacup here. Walking along with you, watching your mind explore and navigate. And I love this relationship that you proposed between the explorer type curiosity, having, I'm putting it in my own words now, but having it facilitates your now adult navigator, goal oriented curiosity. But I also really appreciate what you just finished up with, and that is, wow, I actually miss the more childlike, open, wandering, exploring curiosity. And I think that is probably true for a lot of adults. I think
Yeah.
it and one of the reasons, so I'm so grateful that you brought that up because one of the reasons I so wanted to do this is I would love it if adults watching, listening to this would also stop and say, do I still have open curiosity? Because
Yeah.
I think we still need to apply that in our adult world, not just to people and children, but to people at work and to our work itself. And you just sort of landed on that, that it
Yeah.
does feed that. And before we started the recording, you were sharing with me a bit about your last trip to Togo, your trip to Togo recently, and about this realization that for various reasons, you discovered that if you didn't present the aid and the assistance that you're trying to provide on behalf of the United States government, if you didn't present it in a transactional way, that met with skepticism and suspicion. I'm maybe convoluting what you said, but that because
No,
I would have expected it not to want that people wouldn't want it to be transactional, but you have applied your curiosity to understanding, "Oh, I need to enter their frame of reference."
yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. I think I came there a with a predetermined way of wanting to interact, right? Thinking that we shouldn't be transactional. Um I felt like the last few years in DC, and I don't mean to say all of DC, but there's a lot of transactional relationship um, in DC, and I try to avoid very transactional relationship. And I truly just want to know somebody, just to know somebody, whether it's just somebody randomly on the street. In fact, I actually was taking the train this morning to drop off my car, and I asked this lady at the train stop because I didn't know how to buy a train ticket off my phone, and she stopped and helped me, and we sparked a conversation. We just opened up on it with each other. Like, she's from Poland, and she traveled to Spain, and she now lives here. She's a teacher, and we just had this really candid, n nothing, just an 2 individual wanting to learn about each other, and she was curious where I came from as an Asian person here in Germany, and, it was that's just genuine. And so when I was in Togo, my thing was to make sure that we're genuine. We're there because we wanna help. We have this, program that the US have, the DACA program, and we're in part of and all over, in Africa, with to assist and to build capabilities for a lot of the nations down in AFRICOM, so that they can manage and deal with disasters. And my partner and I was there, and I just leaned over to her and I told her, "Hey, let's when as we present what we're able to provide, let's ensure that we don't have this transactional tone. Like, we're here to help, and we want to help, and it's not like we're here to take anything or wanting." But then later on, when I had a conversation with a local embassy staff, they reminded me, like, we kind of have to be careful as well, because the culture here, what the relationship in the past few years here, it's very transactional. We would provide something, there's something that they would want back. Um, and so when you stop that, when you say, "Hey, we just want to give you all these things, or we want to assist with all these things without any return," um, then there's this cautionary, like, "Well, why do you not want anything in return?" And
Mhm.
so,
Mm.
so that just kinda took me back. I had to take a step back and say, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't I've never looked at it that way." Um, I thought it was just sometimes you just give and you don't need to be taking, but somebody would question that. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm just not sure if that's a bad, or because we start out with, as human beings, we always have this way of thinking that there's give and take all the time. There's never just give. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
So interesting. When I was thinking about, ooh, what would I like to sort of explore? Some of the possibilities would be to explore with you in this conversation? And I thought, it would be interesting to talk about curiosity as you've experienced it in the military, or as a leader, especially in the military, as you've moved up in ranks. But now I'm thinking, I'm really wanting to talk more about, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but I'm curious to talk more about this cultural piece for two reasons. One, I'm really interested in the framework that's provided by something called cultural intelligence model, which I learned about via a book, oof, in early 2000s, and then ended up getting certified in it because I was very curious. I love cultures, and it's a model that really guides us to literally become more adaptable and flexible in our thinking, not just learn the codes and mores of another culture and how you
Yeah.
exchange business cards and whatever, but how do I shift my own thinking to align with theirs? I don't lose myself in it, but I become more flexible. And so I'm really fascinated by that. And it makes me think, I believe that you have very high cultural intelligence, and I don't know if you think that might you may or may not agree with me, but I think you do, and I've known you a long time. We've had a lot of conversations. If that comes from being inborn, or or do you think that by being born in Vietnam and moving at the age of 4, needing to adapt to an American culture and then adapting from a civilian to a military culture, marrying a Puerto Rican, living in Puerto Rico, what do you think your let's put aside whether or not you agree with me that you're highly culturally intelligent. I think you are. I don't want because I know you have a very, uh, you don't have a strong ego, so you probably go, "Oh, no, that's not me." So let's put that aside. Do you think you came into this world just culturally adaptable, or did you learn it, or both, or what do you think?
This is great. I love culture, as you know, and I think it's I think it's a combination of both. I think my experience has exposed me to being culturally aware all the time. Um, but the also the curiosity aspect of me as a child um allow no, I wouldn't say allow, but pushes me to I think if you're a when I was a kid and when I'm curious, I have to learn to accept whatever the answer is. I don't have I can't form an opinion before the answer comes, right? And so I think that pushes me to be very flexible in whatever the answer is. And when I say the answer is, if I meet a friend who is not Vietnamese, who is Laos or, name a race, I don't form some sort of framework or some sort of I don't form any judgment o
Mm,
of that person, of
mm,
that individual. I allow the curiosity take over and just be open to whatever they are, whoever they are, and I accept that. And then saying, that's just a different person than me, and that's okay. And I can be friend with this person. I can
mm,
hang out, go in the playground, play ball, whatever it is,
mm,
until they do something that's hurtful. And
mhm.
I think but to some extent, you have to say, well, is that a cultural thing that they're doing? And that do they intend to do that? Or is it just simply that's actually ill will intent, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's where being mindful of culture is important,
Yeah.
right? For an example, when I was deployed in Iraq in 2005, you get before you go into any country deploy, you get like a short cultural course. And one of the thing was um, you don't show the bottom of your feet
Mhm,
when you sit or in Iraq. That's disrespectful. Like, I would never known that if I show the bottom of my foot would be disrespectful to the people of in Iraq. But I'm not gonna say, "Well, that's stupid." I don't right? I wouldn't say that. I would respect the fact that I'm in their country, and I'm not gonna do that. When I sit, I don't cross my feet. When I sit on a chair, I don't cross my feet so my feet doesn't go then I can't see the bottom of my foot. Um, but I think in that sense,
mm,
as a child, being curious helped me to be emotionally and culturally accept or opened.
mhm,
And then when you are emotionally and intelligently open to different culture, then you learn. And I think that's where
mm,
cultural intelligence is.
mhm,
It's almost there's to an extent learned behavior.
mm,
So yeah.
mm. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is when we're done with this, I really would love to continue this conversation because this
Yeah.
could go on forever because I have so many avenues that I want to explore, but there's so because I love this topic of cultural intelligence. And let me just say for the listeners, viewers, what I love about the model, and maybe we'll pick this up now or maybe a second conversation, but it has 4 dimensions, whereas many cultural training programs offer don't show the bottom of your feet kind of things, and that's super
Right.
important.
Right.
And then, of course, there's language, which is also really important and helpful. But the cultural intelligence model also encourages and sort of guides and trains people to think about their thinking in the moment, to be
Yeah.
thinking about, okay, what else do I not know? Oh, I see this person's response to what I thought, they would be happy about, but they're not showing me happiness. What am I missing here? So you're consciously thinking about your thinking, the metacognition. And then another really important piece that a lot of cultural training programs don't have is this drive. And so to be culturally adaptable, sometimes it's exhausting. It's
Yeah.
difficult. to engage with people who just have such different experiences and mindsets and perceptions and knowledge that our drive, our motivation will wane, it'll dip, and we need to know how to up it. So it helps us maintain. So if I really do think you have all of those pieces, and that's why I feel comfortable in saying you're a highly culturally intelligent person. So, okay, that's another like total subject that I would love to explore. But you said something else. And I wrote down, and if people are wondering why I'm looking down, I'm jotting down notes in my scribble here. You were describing, flexible, being flexible pertaining to cultures. And I feel that I want to capture something that is very true about you as well. And I think your comments really illustrate it, that being adaptable and flexible, some people will think that's a sign of weakness, but it's actually a sign of strength and confidence. And I think that's something that you just live and breathe because you have taught me a lot about being more flexible and adaptable in my own thinking with every
Yeah.
conversation. And I'm a generally, pretty adaptable, flexible person, but you have just a very gentle, circular way of posing a question. I'm like, "Ooh, I think I just got slapped down on that one," is really great. So I want to see what you think about that idea that, for me, it's a truth that being flexible and adaptable is actually a strength. And I wonder if you agree with that and if you think that you find that to be true for you, say, in your military career.
Hmm.
It's a big question again.
I no, I think it's true. I think being adaptable and being able to see the situation, and I think we have like an old saying and Chinese old saying, you got to be like water, right? You
Mhm.
if you pour water in a bowl or in a cup with rocks, the only way to fill it up is to be like water when you can feel every crack, every and I think a lot of time, especially in the military, like an organization as the DoD, sometimes people don't see it that way. Being adaptable, being flexible is a sign of strength because the stigma and what the DoD represent. You got to be hard. You got to be strong. You got to be unmovable, right? You got to strike. You got to, and I think there's a lot of people don't often see it that way. Um, but when you go into a lot of these leadership training or leadership courses, they teach you that at like general level training.
Teach you
Yeah,
the adaptability part or to not
the
be the
the
flexibility,
adaptability to be
to be
flexible,
flexible. So as you get
right?
up higher, that
Higher,
message comes through.
yeah,
Mm,
because you're now in charge of a much bigger entity of the DoD, right? And so maybe at different level it's used differently. But I definitely do believe that it is a sign of strength. But there's also when and where to do it, I think. Um, I don't think that if you're always that way, then you're just what they call it a pushover, or a yes person, that's always saying yes or can't stand their ground, or and maybe that's not being flex. That's maybe it's being perceived as that, but when you do need to be firm, you are firm. But when you do need to be flexible, I think it goes back to always having balance,
mm,
right?
mm.
And when you don't have balance, that's when it could be perceived in the wrong way. So here, let me put it this way. Yes, being flexible, being adaptable is a key to being what's the word you used?
I said it's a sign of strength or it's
The
an
sign of strength.
strength.
Yes. Yeah, the sign is a sign of strength. But if you don't know how to balance it to
Mhm.
being firm when you need to be firm, strong when you need to be strong, and push back when you need to push back, then it's viewed as a sign of weakness.
That's really
Yeah.
clever. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think in everything you just have to be able to balance it all. Um, yeah.
As always, when we have conversations, my brain just starts making so many different connections. And when you're talking about the Chinese saying "be like water," and then you talked about knowing when to be flexible and adaptable, and when you need to stand your ground is a very smart comment to me. And then you mentioned always need balance, and it took me back to I think you've practiced martial arts. I don't remember now, but Aikido, right? Which is both strength through flexibility and adaptability and using your
Yep,
opponent's energy
yep,
almost against them, which sounds a little,
yeah,
but that's the essence of it. But it's a very balancing martial art.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's force against force is it's just at the end, it's just whoever's force is stronger, right? But being balanced and being flexible and being that sign of strength, understanding their ability and their strength and weaknesses, to use that to either uplift them so that they can be a better person, or to bring them down so that they can be a little bit more humble, in that sense.
Mhm,
But you don't always have to be strength versus strength, because in the end it's whoever has more strength. But a person who's not as strong, like you said, could use the other person's strength just to change the situation, change the dynamic, change everything. And so you don't always have to be the biggest, the strongest person
mhm,
in the room to make the loudest noise
mhm.
or to be the scariest
Have the most impact, yeah.
or have the most impact. Yeah.
Since I promised our viewers we'll kind of keep it to half an hour, which I feel like we're just getting started. I wanted to ask one final question to bring it back to curiosity. This might be really hard to answer because I don't know how I would answer it, quite honestly, but I'm curious what you think the relationship is, if there is one for you, between that exploring type curiosity, and this knowing when to be flexible and adaptable and when to hold ground. Does is there an aspect of curiosity that helps you know that, do you think? And again, that's a tough one because it's
You-
asking about 2 complex, topics.
let me try to let me unfold that question a little bit. You're asking if there's a connection between curiosity and being flexible, holding it, or
Yes, yes, and being flexible because the flexibility in your example is, which was really, I think, well stated, is that flexibility means knowing when I can be flexible and adaptable and knowing when I so that is also a sign of flexibility. This is a time to be flexible and adaptable, and this is a time not to be. I can think of like parenting. Sometimes you need to be adaptable and flexible with your child, and then you need to, lay down the law. So do you think curiosity helps us know what that boundary is and when we need to, okay, time to hold my ground?
I think curiosity, if you're a curious person, naturally you're gonna want to know when to hold your ground, when not to. And so you're not acting on the this is how I'm gonna do it and that's it. I'm not curious to find out if there's other ways to do it.
Mhm,
Right. And
mm,
so there's definitely a relationship there, and a relationship in the sense where if that relationship is strong, you're naturally gonna be more flexible, wanting to be more flexible, wanting to be able to deal with any situation from any angle rather than this is the only way I'm going to do it and I will not change my way of doing things because that's how I will be and that's it. But if you're naturally curious or you're curious, not naturally curious, or if you're just curious or you want to be curious, then you explore different avenues of approaching anything, whether it's work, life, exercise, whatever, name it. Anything that you want to change in your life. If you're curious, then you're going to explore different ways of doing it.
mm.
Going into a new job, building a new relationship, taking up a new hobby, right? Traveling. It's got somewhere along the line. of doing any of those things or exploring any of those things or attempting to change any of those things, there's got to be some sort of curiosity.
Mhm.
And so the more curious you are, I think the better you are to set out to do something new
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
starting something new in your life.
Mm.
So yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation there. There's definitely a relationship there.
Very well said. It makes a lot of sense. I promised that was the last question, but I lied because I have another one I've got to ask. When do you have you noticed when your curiosity drops out? Like, what causes curiosity to go quiet in you, if it does?
I think I would like to shut it down
Mm.
when I'm no longer enjoying what I'm doing, or I find that it's not this curiosity. I guess it goes back to my first answer to you about curiosity when you asked, there's the curiosity as a kid, as a child, just exploring, a curiosity of explorations, then versus a curiosity of goal oriented. um a lot of the time, no, maybe not a lot of time, but when it comes to goal oriented curiosity, it can be exhausting. um
Mm.
it
Mm.
can stress you out.
Mm.
You you can, you can, yeah, you can feel the stress because you're not, when you feel like you're not moving forward to these, to achieve these goals or to get to the finish line, it becomes exhausting.
Mm.
Even though you have the motivation or the passion or the curiosity to try to continue. Let me restate that. It's the motivation, it's the curiosity, it's the that's driving you to continue. And when you're not getting anywhere, those things starts to diminish. And then that
Mhm.
becomes very exhausting.
Mhm. Mhm.
But but the exploration curiosity, I can't remember a time I was exhausted of being curious to explore as a kid. There's so much joy in that. And I think that is where sometime I wanna turn some of these goal-oriented curiosity off so that I don't keep pushing myself to achieve whatever it is that I'm setting forward to, because it's becoming exhausting, it's becoming stressful. Um, and I think that ties back to, when do some of the exercise, interceptiveness that when we talk about and what you practice is to, when do you hear your body telling
Mm.
yourself that you're exhausted, and what is it that's causing
Nice.
those things? And it's what are you listening to the signs,
Nice.
And as I'm reading, actually I have your book in front of
Ah,
me.
thank
As
you.
I love it
I didn't
because I
ask viewers, I didn't ask Kai to do that.
no, she did not ask me to do that, but as I'm going through your book, and it's been very helpful. I try to figure out, is it just me continue to be curious, or or do I need to take a step back and listen to my body and say, hey, you're not sleeping too well, your your body's stressed, you're not getting enough exercise. You can continue to push, you continue to be curious and push, but sometimes you have to take a step back and stop and listen to your body and say, those goals and those things, it can wait, but your body needs to kind of slow it down a little bit. So I
Nice.
think it's, yeah, that I think that's what I mean by sometimes I have to stop my curiosity, or take a hold of my curiosity so that I don't overstress, overstimulate myself to keep pushing. And that's why I kind of, and it goes back to my other comment of like, I do miss being the explorational curiosity because it seems
Yeah.
so much more fun.
And it's energizing to me, right? But I
Mm,
I really love your point about one way to even recognize if I'm in exploration mode versus goal-oriented navigation mode, even though they both
mm,
kinda at the surface look like curiosity, one can be exhausting for
yeah,
me, and you just cited that really well, and one is probably always generating energy,
yeah.
charges my battery.
Right.
And so I think that's such a great point for viewers and listeners to ask themselves that question. And I'm really grateful for you to bringing it back to the interoceptive piece, which, I'm trying not to shove that down people's throats, even though I know and science tells us it's crucial. But I appreciate that because that is one of the best ways to know what's going on is to tune into the body. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Um, this is I'm just wow. Feel like I just like started. I want to talk to you for 10 hours about this. And so we will maybe in Germany.
Yeah. Come out here.
What's your
This is a lot
next
of
trip?
fun.
Do you know what your next trip is?
I'm not quite sure yet, but I want to get down to Madagascar and yeah.
See the
Uh,
lemurs.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's on
That's
my
cool.
list of to do. Yeah. I was in Togo's and I saw 'em in Ghana and got down. I need to get down to Benin and all that stuff too. So,
Well, I'm super envious that you get to travel through Africa. That is so cool. I'm just have to live
yeah.
vicariously through you.
No, it's been exciting. It's very humbling to be able to take on this job for the next couple of years. So
They're really
yeah.
lucky to have you in that role, and I'm so excited for both of you and Anna. Um, so thank you so much. I know how busy you are.
No,
It's
thank you.
it's
This is a lot of fun.
afternoon on Friday in Germany, and I really, really appreciate your time. So good to
No,
see you.
yeah, yeah. I love the conversation as always, and hopefully you'll make it out here. And
You take care, and thank you.
thank you. Looking forward
Bye bye.
to our next chat. Mm.
Bye.